All right, and we are live. Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of the Apptrepreneur Show. We're doing it on Sunday. We normally do it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. However, tomorrow is my 1-year anniversary with my wife, and obviously we want to not do anything on that day except for spend time with each other. Therefore, this video is being made tonight so that it can play for you tomorrow and Tuesday if you so shall choose. Now, that said, we do have one of the advantages to doing this on Sunday is that we have a guest with us today. We have the one and only Dark Road Run, who is breaking quarantine and being on the streets on San Francisco.
That's right. Hello, folks. I'm here to make Uber great again. Hashtag Muga.
Oh, geez, you are gonna get us demonetized, aren't you?
Is that across the line?
Yep. Thank you, Legacy.
No 122. That's the thing. No 122.
Exactly. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So anyway, what is today's episode about? Well, the title might make it seem pretty clear-cut. However, we want to still explain what this live stream is and what it is not. What this live stream is not is an endorsement or not an endorsement of Prop 22. With that said, I am leaning very heavily towards voting no on 22. I think Dark Road Run is pretty confirmed on voting no on Prop 22. However, we do want to give Prop 22 its day in court. YouTube court, if you will. So
I'm not so much about voting no. I'm just dead set about not voting yes on it.
And we'll get into reasons why throughout this episode. But we do want to lay out the pros and the cons because, believe it or not, yes, on 22 people, there are cons to this bill. And believe it or not, no on 22 people, there are pros to this bill. And we want to put both of them out there and we will discuss them. And we're going to discuss our own personal feelings about it. And also, this is going to be interactive, believe it or not. Near the end, we're going to go to a not a spreadsheet. It's going to be a Google Doc. And we are going to literally write the pros and the cons down side by side so that we can get kind of a visual of what we perceive to be whether or not this is pro or con. Now, this particular video is the pros and cons if Prop 22 is going to pass, which I personally think it will. What about you? Think it's going to pass?
Oh man, yeah. I think it will pass because I know there are more passengers than drivers in all these markets, but especially California, and all Uber needs is the vote of the passengers to pass this, and it's a great pitch for the passengers, like, hey, keep Uber cheap and fast. And it's like,
yeah, that's been their pitch for a while now, but at the same time, never say never. So the first thing we are going to do, we're going to go straight to the source itself. What is Proposition 22? And we will do this for next week's episode as well, just in case someone misses this one. But here it is from the voter guide on California's official website. Prop 22 exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers initiative statute. So that's what Prop 22 is actually labeled as, is that it exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employees benefits to certain drivers initiative statute. That's actually what it is. That's how they have listed this, which, before we go any further, Dark Road Run, do you know that that's how this thing is officially labeled as?
I didn't know that was I didn't read the official label. Yeah, I didn't know that was
Are you a little surprised by that?
That's that's boiling. That's pretty boiling down on this.
Yeah.
But I wonder what
that's when you actually read the title, that doesn't sound very good.
Yeah. So we were saying like it's going to pass. Like AB5 passed And that was the genesis of like kind of all this movement. So there could be a chance that maybe all this stuff, this propaganda could go to waste, and it will not.
Right.
22 will fail. But
well, even though you can't see the document now, I'm going to make that our first con.
Yep.
Title summary sounds negative.
Yeah.
That's going to be our first con in this. Now let's read the summary. The summary classifies app-based drivers as independent contractors instead of employees and provides independent contractor drivers other compensation unless certain criteria are met. Fiscal impact, minor increase in state income taxes paid by rideshare and delivery companies, drivers, and investors. So I'm also going to write down in the summary the first pro of Prop 22 passing. Will provide
fair share of their taxes,
financial relief in taxes.
Yeah.
And don't worry, folks, you will see the document once we're done with this page.
Yeah.
Now then, what your vote means. A yes vote on this measure means app-based rideshare and delivery companies could hire drivers as independent contractors. Drivers could decide when, where, and how much to work, but would not get standard benefits and protections that businesses must provide to employees. So I'm going to write a couple things down. The first pro is, well, ID status means flexible hours. But then I'm also going to write in the cons, because this is interesting, because this is what Uber is actually one of the things that they're selling Prop 22 on, that drivers will get benefits. One of the cons, Uber, and we're going to use Uber synonymous with Postmates, Lyft, whatever, doesn't have to pay benefits, which is interesting, because that's one of the things that Uber and Lyft actually say that this is one of the things that they're going to do. But you can see it right there.
It's
they would not get standard benefits and protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
they don't, they'll stay. I mean, they can make empty promises.
Right. Now, I mean, benefits, there is a pro to the benefits, and we'll get to that later. Now, a no vote. A no vote on this measure means app-based rideshare and delivery companies would have to hire drivers as employees if the courts say that a recent state law makes drivers employees. Drivers would have less choice about when, where, and how much to work, but would get standardized benefits and protections that the businesses must provide employees. So that's what a no measure means. And I'm not going to write down a pro or con for either of that, because honestly, it kind of depends who you are, whether that's a pro or a con.
Yeah.
So I don't think that one we can definitively say is a pro or a con.
Right. Yeah. It's for the full time, the drivers that are driving full time already. It'd be nice if they had things like overtime and healthcare and stuff. All this stuff like costs take over. But yeah, it depends on Yeah,
that kind of depends on your stance. Because one of the things that we hear all the time is that, they want to be independent. So in fact, I'm even going to bold the flexible hours pro as a big pro for this thing. And you'll see what I mean in a minute, folks. Now here's the arguments.
Oh, I see Legacy Rideshare in the house, Sovereign Renaissance, Eric, Nita. Yep, we see you there. So yeah.
It's like, Sovereign Renaissance says, keep it cheap and fast. That's what she said. And Eric said, only thing I want for my delivery app is the ability whenever you see the payment up front. Yeah, we're still doing office jokes. It's 2000.
That was Dara's wedding vows. Just not okay.
Ooh, low blow. Let's wait at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go for the arguments, because this will help a lot.
Okay.
Pro, yes on 22 protects app-based drivers' choice to be independent contractors. In fact, I will list that as a pro. Protects ID status.
It's their
choice.
definition of an independent contractor.
Right, their definition. Because I don't think you are, but
No.
in fact, I'm going to even choice. In fact, here's what I'm going to do.
We're an independent employee.
Yeah, I'm actually going to actually write that pro, and some people might not appreciate this, but what the heck. Protects ID status choice perception. And the con, not really an ID at end of day. Well, anyway, let's get back to, so saves right by 4-to-1 margin drivers support independence. I don't agree with that. I think they support fair pay and the ability to do whatever they want whenever they want. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I don't necessarily agree with that. So, because like I said, in my opinion, this is a perception. You're not really ID, so I'm not going to mark that as a pro.
Right.
It saves rideshare delivery services and hundreds of thousands of jobs. And you know what? I am going to mark that as a pro. Saves rideshare and jobs it provides. That is a pro. It strengthens public safety. I don't agree with that.
They say that. They say 22 strengthens public safety.
Yes. What do you think about a statement like that? Do you think 22 strengthens?
That's not. Yeah, no. It limits the liability of these companies. If something bad happens on the road to a passenger or driver, as an independent contractor, the current model, which 22 insures, will not, stays the same. It's like Uber and Lyft is like, those are independent contractors.
Yeah. So actually, we're going to disagree with this statement, and we're going to write it down as a con. Now, how would you word that as a con? If Prop 22 passes, no criminal liability from Uber.
Yeah, continued no criminal liability from Uber.
Continued
disregard for public safety.
Criminal liability from Uber. My space bar does not seem to be working as well as it should. Okay. So here it says, endorsed by overwhelming majority of drivers, community, public safety, small business groups. That I'm also going to call BS on. You don't actually, because I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
And the small businesses, especially when it comes to Grubhub and stuff, taking 40% of the order, I don't think
true. Yeah.
In fact, I'm even going to make that the next con. If Prop 22 passes, Uber Eats continues to screw small business.
Yep.
In fact, we'll add another one. Uber continues to screw passengers, and Uber continues to screw drivers, and we can actually add onto that as well. Now let's go to the con arguments. No on 22 stops billion-dollar app companies like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash from writing their own exemption California law by profiting from it. That's an interesting one to say that's a con, because I was under the impression Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash had a very big hand in writing this.
Yeah. It is their bill. It's
their bill, right?
Yeah.
So they wrote it. No, I'm actually going to write that as a con. Uber.
This is what they spent $130 million for.
Yep. Gig companies wrote this bill, and in fact, I'm going to bold that one, because it's almost kind of like the tobacco company writing a bill about, taxing the cigarette companies. It's like there's a huge conflict of interest there when you realize that.
Right. Yeah. So, the car companies being against installing seat belts because it makes the cars look unsafe. It's like, it is unsafe and they should deal with it. But
yep. In fact, I'm actually going to write down conflict of interest as a con, because they did write it, and I think that's a fair con to have. Now then, let's see here. 22 denies their drivers their rights and safety protections they deserve: sick leave, health care, and unemployment.
Overtime.
Well, that is not true. In fact, I'm even going to put that as a pro. If, well, wait, no. Do I put it as a pro?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about it passes.
They're saying a 22 denies Prop 22 denies it.
Well, here's what I'm going to do because Prop 22, we do know it does have some benefits things built in. So we'll write down benefits can be accrued. That's going to be a pro.
Dustin is driving in the house. Oh, Dustin is driving. Is in the house.
Oh, he's in the house. Hey, Dustin, how you doing? But one of the cons with benefits being accrued is that benefits can be lost if minimum hours not met. So let's continue to look at the cons. Companies profit, exploited drivers lose rights and protections, vote no. Well, that's kind of, like I said, we kind of disagree on that. And then this site, which by the way, this site is linked to below, has, the website for the yes on Prop 22 and the no on Prop 22 and email addresses from campaigns from both if you want to email them and, find out about this yourself. So let's look at some of, hey, Dustin is here. How you doing? Now, Moose says what they don't tell you is that 20% of drivers do 80% of the rides, which, you know what? I'm gonna actually list that as a con. Like let's see here. 20% of drivers do 80% of the rides. So
that's saying 20% of the drivers do 80%. That means that 80% of the drivers are super part-time and do do less than a full, days of a full load of passengers, I guess.
So would you consider that like a pro then, that Prop 22 would cover 80% of the part-timers? I probably would. I probably would.
Yeah.
Pro is that lets 80% of drivers resume part-time. Now, a con of that, though, is that 20%, and actually, no, that might be a pro too. 20% of drivers accrue benefits. So we will actually consider 2 of those pros. Yeah. Now, for those of you who want to see what it is I've been typing down and how this is going to get interactive, let's go over here. As you can see, I've been writing down the pros and the cons, and some of them, I don't know if you can see them. Maybe there's a way to zoom. Is there a way to zoom in on?
Yeah, there. Maybe hold control and do the spinny wheel on the mouse.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let's get this. Let's get this thing nice and big for everyone. Yeah. And this is what we're doing. We're doing the pros and cons, and I've been writing them down. And I have bolded certain ones because I think those are extremely important. And this is what we're doing. We are literally listing what we see the pros of Prop 22 passing and what the cons are. Now, as you can see, the cons seem to so far be outweighing the pros. Yeah. That can change. And in both cases, at least we consider one from each column to be big pros and big cons. The big pro is that by remaining ID status, you have flexible hours.
Right.
The big con so far is that the gig companies wrote this bill. Now, that's going to lead to my next, and this is what I added, conflict of interest. And the reason I wrote that as an additional con is because, I have this saying, and I think you agree, that if Uber wants it, And they want it badly enough to the tune of $185 million, which could conceivably be more than $200 million by the time this is all said and done. I'm suspicious because Uber has never done anything for the drivers. They've never fought for the drivers. In fact, the 180 days of change thing, everything except the tip option was taken back after a certain period of time.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
no,
this is
yeah,
not,
yeah. If
this
they
is not a
like
company
it,
that
it's
fights
probably
for you.
Yeah.
So if the companies wrote the bill, I consider that a conflict of interest. I consider that a double negative.
Yeah.
I consider that suspicious. So anyway, let's see here. Dustin says, makes me glad I'm not in Cali.
Yeah.
And let's see here. If Prop 22 passes, won't 80% of drivers be out of a job? That is a good thing. And this is where it starts getting interactive, folks. We're going to start taking your hindsight. So if past, 80% of drivers would lose job. Did I already do that? No, I didn't do that one yet. So yeah, that's
actually what they've all said that they said we're only capable. Lyft has said we're only capable of hiring 22% of the workforce in California. Like that's but it comes down to the fact that like those that remain are going to be making more money because that's really like there's no secret to like why we're making less these days. It's just oversaturation of drivers. When I started, there was like 10 to 15,000 drivers in the Bay Area and rates were higher. Now there's like 110,000 drivers. So less drivers. They can, it's
so if Prop 20, so should one of the cons be then if Prop 22 doesn't, it's like fails, more money for 20%?
Yes.
Is that a con or a pro?
Pro for the 20, for the 20%. Yeah, it's more money to go around because they're gonna
well, this is if Prop 22 passes. So if Prop 22 doesn't pass, then one of the cons would be like if fail, 20% of drivers will make less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And lose out on benefits and everything like that.
If it passes, yes.
Will actually, let's reword it. Will miss out on higher pay and benefits. That's how we'll word it.
If it fails, 20% drivers will miss out on higher pay and benefits. If Prop 22 fails, then 20%. Okay.
That sounds. Let's see here. If fail 20%. So that's a con because if 22 passes, because then that 20% would not be making extra money getting their benefits accrual. So we'll consider that a con. Is there another pro we can think of if Prop 22 passes? Because we don't. Obviously, we're a little biased in this, but again, we want to give 22 their day.
Cover stays in business in California.
No, why not? They're sponsors for us.
I mean, literally, like if we're all employees, like Cover only exists because there's an inefficiency in the system, and Cover's supplying prepaid legal help for drivers because Uber doesn't want to take responsibility for that. So
right.
They see like, oh, there's a business opportunity. We can sell that. But if we're employees, then something happens in our cars, it's the old Wendy's thumb in the chili example. Woman finding thumbs, and I'm going to sue Wendy's corporate. They're responsible. It's not the cook who allegedly put the thumb in the chili.
And that probably leads us to our next con. Uber will avoid being held responsible for
accidents, misclassifications,
child's death.
That's true. Yeah.
And sexual assault.
Yep.
These are all things that Uber does not have to worry about as long as you are independent. And I really want our viewers to look at this real hard.
You know, it's almost
Look at this.
it's almost like that autonomous car that hit that woman in Arizona was an independent contractor, because no one in Uber went to jail for that, but the driver is like being charged with it, which she should.
Well, well, I shared this story with you. I'm gonna in fact, I'm even gonna make this a
low roller stacking.
I'm gonna make this one a big one. But there's, and this is, it's gonna sound like we're losing track, folks, but stick with me on this one. Yeah. Does anyone remember Domino's? You're going to have your pizza in 15 minutes or it's free. In fact, it wasn't just Domino's. It was a ton of pizza places. They made a big deal in commercials. Order the pizza. If it's not there in 15 minutes, it's free. Mm-hmm. Now, I at one point worked for Roundtable. Fun story. And I remember, because sometimes it would take a lot longer than 13 minutes for someone to get their pizza. And they would say, so what happened to the 15 minutes or it's free deal? And for a while, I did not know. And here's what I found out. 15 minutes or it's free came to an end when a Domino's pizza delivery driver was trying to deliver pizza. And here's what they didn't tell you about that deal. If the driver did not deliver the pizza in time, that reflected poorly on the driver, not Domino's. Domino's would dock the driver's pay for that pizza. Yeah. So the Domino's pizza driver really wanted to get that pizza there in 15 minutes or less.
Right.
Well, driver was speeding, hit a child, killed the child, and his defense was, I needed to get there in 15 minutes or the pizza was going to be free, and that would have cost me money. Yeah. And Domino's was considered liable in that. So as a result of that lawsuit, pizza companies got away from, you're getting it in 15 minutes or it's free. Yeah. Now, if it takes more than an hour, you can complain and they'll probably still give you for free.
Yeah.
But contrast that to Uber and Lyft and Postmates. If an Uber driver runs over a child and kills it, and this has happened, by the way.
Yep, San Francisco.
Yep, San Francisco. Uber and Lyft are not liable for that. Their response is, hey, they're an independent contractor. Sue them. We have nothing to do with this.
Right.
And that's also with what things happen with the driver. If the Uber driver goes crazy and kidnaps the passenger and gives them a night of hell, which we've read about and talked about on both our channels.
Yep.
At the end of the day, what's Uber's response? Yeah, they're an independent contractor. Yeah. They, don't sue us, sue them.
It's like trying to sue Craigslist for getting ripped off on a couch that you bought, like a car. It's like, well,
and then you have personal experience with this about when you shared that video about, like, why don't you share the story about that guy who decided to get handsy with you?
It was, I mean, it's like, there's so many like traumatic moments. I mean, that's what you get for doing this it's my fault for doing this for 6 years. But it's, I picked up this family at a wedding, and it was an Uber X, and I had a small car at the time, a 2010 Corolla, same car as you drove, and great cars. Family, this wife and daughter, it's a rehearsal dinner. I picked them up late at night. They're sitting in the back seat. This guy who's really drunk, he sits in the front seat, and then it's a short drive to their hotel, and the guy's like getting tired of playing with the radio, and so he decides like, oh, hey, I'm gonna put my hands on the driver, and it's like puts his hand on the back of my neck, and it's like he's trying to give me a neck massage. Or I'm like, dude, no, it's all right. I'm trying to like push his hand away. Then he goes for my chest area. And it's like he did things that it was like, it's not the first and it's definitely not the worst by any means. I'm not saying like what I went through compares to the horror that drivers have gone through. Other drivers have gone through. They've gone through much worse. This was the Disneyland of sexual assaults, which ironically is, I don't know. It's, don't sue that. Yeah. Anyways, but it's like, if I had done a fraction of what that passenger did to him, I would be out. I'd be done. Never. I'd be like, good luck. Good luck. You're deactivated. No coming back. Even the hint of any of that. I sent. I sent the thing.
Con can be
Oh,
activated without due process. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I sent at the end of the ride. His family is kind of dragging him out of the car because he doesn't for some reason he didn't want to leave, and it's like, and I put in the report on the driver made me feel uncomfortable. Uber with one email, and then they called me within 45 minutes. I didn't feel like talking to Uber because if anything, it felt like I was the victim, and I didn't want it. And Uber was the contractor for my abuse, and I didn't feel like talking to them. And so the next morning, I got an email saying, "We're sorry this happened. We're going to investigate to see if whether that passenger is worthy of the system or something like that." And that was it. That was end of story. If that had happened in any fraction of that to a passenger, I'm deactivated, and they get $150 ride credit or something like that. Some cash bonus, oh, we're so sorry. We're going to make sure that never happens again. It's totally double standard in this industry for years. There's no consequence for passengers. Never has, never will be. I guess no, yeah. I mean, it's because Uber's not liable. That's the beauty of this system. They engineered it so all the liabilities going on us as independent contractors. You're a user in this. It's like
right.
But
yeah, and I also added that if Prop 22 passes, these companies really cannot be held liable by passengers because they'll do that whole status hey, they're independent contractors, don't sue us. So that probably is included with Uber will avoid being held responsible. Actually, yeah, that's kind of the same thing. So
don't do cash rides, people, and don't pick up unaccompanied minors, because as long as you're in that glimmer of protection under the terms of service, you have a hope of some kind of protection as it is right now. But as soon as you do stuff like that, if you pick up an unaccompanied minor and obviously some people they might be hard to tell or something like that, but if they're in the car and you get into an accident, you are totally screwed. It's Uber is going to pretend you never even existed.
Right. So that's why we bolded Uber will avoid being held responsible for accidents, attacks, child death, sexual assault.
Right.
Now, it's Muth said a con would be that the drivers can't adjust the multiplier in California. So I'm actually going to list that one. Yeah. Multiplier goes away if Prop 22 passes. Because right now, Uber, in fact, if Prop 22 passes, the upfront address will go away. But one thing that might also go away is upfront pricing. Actually, that would probably be have to wait for next week's episode.
Hey, right there, Lisa in the house.
Oh, hey, hi, Lisa. Upfront. By the way, Lisa, screw Roy. You're a nice person. I just want to say that screw Roy. Lisa's a nice person. So, upfront.
We're all human beings. We're all flawed people, and so we all have. I don't want to. We're all products of our environment. So
but that was totally unnecessary. So anyway, we're not going to talk about why. We're still focusing on the me.
Yeah.
So, the cons are starting to really outweigh the pros here. Is there any other Are there any other pros either we or our audience can think of that could happen if Prop 22 passes? Keep in mind, so far the pros are it will provide financial relief and taxes for the state.
Yeah.
ID status means flexible hours. It protects ID status choice perception, because I do not believe you're actually independent contractors, but hey, it'll protect the perception.
Right.
It saves rideshare and jobs it provides, a good one. Benefits can be accrued. It lets 80% of drivers resume doing what they're doing part-time, and 20% of drivers accrue benefits. And Cobra AI stays in business.
That's true.
So
and in the background, I'm going to do a little experiment because as we mentioned the multiplier, I'm going to set my multiplier to the maximum. I'm here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna go online, and during this, I'll tell you when I get a request. Let's see how long it takes.
Okay.
And here's a quick note for Uber. Your mask face detection thing is a joke. Look, I have here a Halloween mask of a crazy psycho clown, and it says, "Okay, so I have community safe. I have to take a photo of yourself. Take a photo of yourself before you go online." Okay, great. Take a photo of yourself with your mask cover on. Let's just do. Let's see if this works. Just waiting on the. There you go. And unable to verify. Oh, okay. Maybe they fixed it then.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's positive.
I'll just cover my mouth. See if that works. Yep, that worked.
That worked. Okay.
That literally worked. My hand is like a.
Well, how many people are wearing masks right now? That they probably factored that into the programming.
That's crazy.
But they're also wearing that big hat and everything.
That's true. That's true.
So now, Kenneth, this should be. I need to address this. Kenneth said these rideshare companies are using actors and actresses to lie to the American people. No 122, please. Well, yeah, when you make ads like that, they do use actors and actresses, but that's not necessarily a pro or con.
Yeah,
that's passing. But just wanted to say that anyway. Lisa, you still do rideshare. Please tell us if there's any pros or cons you can think of.
Okay, I'm now online. And it says I'm in a busy area. I have my surge multiplier set to plus to 5x. I'm just going to set it on the side.
So that's the max you can do is 5x. You can't do 10x.
Nope. 5's the limit. And but you can also, the scary thing is you can also set it to negative 0.5. So you can set it low.
Basically, you could be paying them to drive around. Like that's.
It's and I tested this out a couple weeks ago where like I set it to 0.5, then the lowest it can go, and then it got a ride and it forced me to accept it at 1x. So it said like, oh hey, Gress, you got a ride in so it doesn't really make a difference if you set it below, because it'll say like it'll still try and give you a higher rate because Uber is going to make more money on that. So like. Whereas like I bet it's not like advertising that when you set it above like a premium, like, it just, I don't know. It's not a true like setting your own rates kind of thing. It's like we're setting our rates and we're competing again. I mean, they're still like, it's,
Well, apparently Lisa hasn't done much rideshare since March. I agree. Driver Steve says, I wear my mask while I have passengers in the car, but as soon as my packs are out, my mask comes off. Well, that's great, Steve. We don't care. However, what we do care about is, especially since you are pretty much against Prop 22, start telling us what are some of the pros to Prop 22 passing. These are the pros that we've already come to the conclusion, but maybe you, because you're definitely in favor of Prop 22 passing, maybe you can point to some pros that we are not thinking of right now. Like maybe you can think of some pros because Dark Road Run, is there any other pros we can think of? There's got to be something else to this.
It's like, shoot, it sucks that we have to fight so hard to get so little out of these companies, but that's, so these executives are going to have to. Well, I just got wind from. I just got notified. I think it was one of my subscribers, Rob M, told me that they closed permanently the Daly City Greenlight Hub in the Bay Area here. So now we're down to just the Oakland one, I think. Like those Greenlight Hubs, I don't think they're coming back.
No, I don't think they're coming back either.
And if 85 passes, like if Prop 22 fails. I guess what a pro would be is if we're employees, we might get invited to Christmas parties finally. Like,
well, that's for next week's episode. I'm gonna write a pro. This is stretching a little bit, but green hubs might start to come back.
Yeah,
because, you know, if you do have like a lot of people signing up for this, then eventually you do need to reopen some of those green light hubs.
Yeah.
So
pro for 22. That's a pro. Yeah, that's 100. That's that's correct. Because right now, yeah, because if it passes, there's still going to be an oversupply of drivers in California, and we're going to get through this pandemic, people, eventually, if we do the right thing. But it's when we do, it's going to be Prop 22 ensures that rideshare is going to be this. Yeah, so it's an open door policy for whoever wants to drive, pretty much.
Now, It's Smooth said that in the San Francisco death of a child case, the rideshare company involved paid out a huge settlement to the family for the death of the child and injuries to the mother, which that would be news to me. I didn't hear about that. I mean, maybe that happened. Who knows? But I do remember the initial headlines were basically Uber said tough.
That was their first, like major. I think it was 2013 Halloween, and driver had been going for like 20 something hours. There was no limit back at the time. Yep. And was driving Halloween, ran over a family trick-or-treating, killed a young girl, and the family went to Uber, and the Uber's response was, sorry, but that's independent. And then they went to the driver, and the driver didn't have insurance because you're using a car as a business. Right. So he had to declare bankruptcy. He finally got charged with manslaughter and vehicular manslaughter, and then and I think did some time. That's yeah. But you know what? I mean, there's horror stories that goes like, you know, the Taco Bell executive that beat the crap out of that driver.
Yes, I remember that. I remember the Taco Bell executive. Well, driver Steve did threaten. Well, no, not threaten. I'm sorry. Driver Steve pointed out a pro that Uber has threatened that if Prop does not pass and we become employees, they will operate only in major cities. So one of the pros, at least according to, I don't personally think Uber would do that, but since that's what they're saying, one of the pros, if Prop 22 passes, Uber will operate everywhere.
Yeah.
And let's
if 22 passes, they're going to continue to go wherever who wants to drive, wherever there's a demand
right,
for it.
So that's a fair pro. Driver Steve says also don't treat each of these pros and cons as equal in weight. Flexibility far outweighs. Well, and that is why, Steve, if you notice, you know, we could actually probably, here's another thing we do. We can also underline it, but we have done some of these.
That's a good point, though. I mean, some of these are like very important pros and cons.
Right. So if it's bold and underlined, we consider that a very important pro. And flexible hours, as you can see, is one of our very important pros. But so far, that's the only really important pro that we have determined. And this is our opinions, of course, which maybe doesn't mean anything to people. We're just sharing our opinions. We're trying to give them its fair day in court. And the cons, there are two major cons that we consider to be very substantial. That gig companies wrote this bill, so obviously that's a problem. We chalk that up to as if like the tobacco companies had written an anti-smoking bill.
Right.
That's a huge problem. And the other huge con that we consider was Uber will avoid being held responsible for accidents, attacks, child death, sexual assault. Now, it should be noted that sometimes Uber does settle with people in situations like this, but legally they don't have to.
Yeah.
They kind of seem to.
It's a PR stunt.
Yeah, like they kind of probably get in a room and they say, okay, is this a big enough deal that if we don't settle it, it will look bad?
Right.
There's tons of little incidents that happen every single day that they basically say, you know, this is not national news. This is not on anyone's radar. We're not going to do anything about it. And that's why we've listed that as a major con. So anyway,
Go down in the house. Go down there. COM.
Oh, Go Donnie's here, huh? Go Donnie is here. Hi.
George Schneider says hi.
Oh, okay. Hey, hi, George. How you doing? George Drivers say this whole thing should be trash. Instead, we should be demanding regulation. Well, probably, but that's not the topic of the video. The topic is the pros and cons if Prop 22 passes. And again, next week we will be doing the pros and cons if Prop 22 fails.
Yeah.
So, George, do you have any pros of Prop 22 passing that you can think of, or even any cons? Once again, because there's far fewer pros, and I will say it probably speaks volumes that not a lot of people are offering pros to this thing. That should say a lot, I think. So
it's good for Uber. It's good for
house. Yep.
It's good for Uber. It's good for the companies. And again, they're the ones, they've been calling the shots for years.
I'll list it. Good for gig companies, which if you care about the gig company surviving, then yes.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Oh, and hey, one more. Good for stock
price.
In fact, depending.
Oh my
that
gosh,
might be a big one for some people. So
I tell you, if you believe that this Prop 22 is going to pass, I wouldn't be a bad idea to buy $1,000 of shares. But I mean, there's no guarantee or anything. But
no, there's never a guarantee. Yeah. But who knows?
That would be a huge win for these companies financially.
That would be a very huge win for them.
If Prop 22 fails, think of all the lawsuits that have been going on about misclassification since AB5. People have been saying, like for years they've been misclassified and they want back pay and all that stuff. Jay Crater, I think, is owed like $600,000 or something like that. Or
yeah. Well, hey, let's make that one of the cons. Like if Prop 22 passes, Uber will be drowning in lawsuits.
If Prop 22 fails, they'll be drowning.
Well, if it passes, then this is a negative. Now that one might show up on the pro list for next week's episode. There will be some crossover at some point. So George said, I don't want the 30-cent mileage reimbursement because I think the IRS will not let us do the that's so one of the cons, mileage deduction goes away. That's actually a big one. And can we add more? Yes, we can add more. But boy, that con list is getting long. Are there any more pro? So in fact, let's actually say this.
Hey, Katie in the house.
This is a big one. My Katie?
You're Katie in the house.
Yep. Hi, honey. You should wear your mask. Yes, folks. We have in.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got
in the store below the video.
Got some merch.
It's merch. If you are an anti, let's put this away for just a second. Buy a bunch of them. Bring them to the protests.
That's right.
Buy a bunch of them. You can buy them below. Help support the channel.
What do they go for? How much are the masks?
$10 or $12, something like that. I don't think the masks are that expensive. I think the shirts and the mug are more expensive. You can also get this as a mug, but we're going to have more merchandise coming later on, obviously. And there's at least one phrase that's very obvious that we're going to be making mugs for.
Yeah.
So, hey, Marco Polo. We're not going to be discussing Mulan, although I will just say, no, I haven't watched Mulan.
Oh, you should. It's really good. I saw it.
Well, I'm not paying $30 for it on a streaming site. So,
hey, Katie.
Yep. By
the way, I'm still logged in. I have not gotten a request.
You have not gotten a request for 5 times.
5 times. I'm lowering my rates.
Pro is that Uber and Lyft won't be shutting down. I don't think they'll shut down, but what the heck? Uber and Lyft won't shut down.
Yeah.
That's probably a big deal for some people. So we'll make that a bull too.
Mm-hmm.
A key point as well. So and George is saying hi, honey. So do we have what dawned on me? This is going to make a really lousy podcast for the people who listen to this show audio only.
oh, that's right. You're gonna. Oh, okay.
Because you can listen to this show on Spotify and other sites of that nature.
Well, you're reading them out. You're narrating it, so it's
That's true. I am reading it out. So,
but so far it looks like there's more cons to it than
there's definitely more cons to it than pros. And some of these cons, it should be pointed out, like the mileage deduction goes away. That definitely benefits people who drive for Uber and Lyft. I mean, that's where, believe it or not, the mileage deduction is where you make your real money when it comes to rideshare and food delivery, not the money that you're getting from the trips. So that would be a tough
you think
thing to go.
They'll keep Drive Pass? You think they'll do that, or
on
if Prop 22 passes, they'll probably continue with the whole paying them to get rides.
They probably will. Ride Pass sticks around. That's a pro.
They kind of stole that from Trip, I guess. It's like the only thing.
That was the first one to really start doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Honest.
Yeah.
So anyway, my wife says hi, George. Well, It's Moose says the IRS will let you take the 57.5 cents per mile deduction for 2020, but probably not for 2021. So that's why it's under the con.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we really want to stretch, we could put that as a pro, like mile deduction stays for 2020, but I'm not going to list it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to list it. So,
let's see. Is Rapify still in business?
Rapify is still in business. So here's the thing.
I guess you can. Oh, you can. And there's another thing, like you can drive for multiple platforms, and people are worried if you're an employee, you can only work for one company or something.
Well, so if Prop 22 passes, you can drive for multiple platforms. The thing about the Rapify that we can't put that as a con or a pro is that they're already telling you can't do Rapify if you are an Uber or a Lyft driver. They apparently they consider that to be a dirty car.
It's true.
But that might show up in the next list, though, that well, no, I don't know if it would, because here's the thing. If you're independent contractor, theoretically, you are supposed to be able to do Rapify, but they're not letting you. But if you're employed, then they can definitely tell you not to use Rapify.
Right.
So
they're screwed either way on it. But Rapify, people, if you don't remember, is where you wrap your car with an advertisement, and then you get paid for the app tracks your mileage of where you drive and stuff.
Right.
You tried that. That's that.
Now, driver Steve says, I'm happy right now because I'm averaging $5,200 a month. I am not going to put that as a pro or con for two reasons. First of all, not everyone is making that kind of money. Here's the second reason I'm not going to list it, because that does not account for expenses or how much you put into rideshare. So you could be personally spending a heck of a lot less of that. So, what were you going to say?
Oh, is he doing Uber Black or?
I don't know exactly. Although I will say $5,200 a month is not a bad.
Oh, we're talking month. Oh yeah, I thought I was thinking like week or something.
Yeah, no, that's a month. That's a month.
That's pretty okay. That's
okay.
1,400 a week or so. Yeah,
it's a little bit more than minimum wage, so that's pretty good. Let's see here. George says It's Moose, the IRS cannot deduct a charge for which has already been received a deduction. Okay, a reimbursement. I mean. All right, so he says, Kevin, I can provide the information on the death of the child case if you want to. You can mail stuff like that to greatmediauniverse@gmail.com. And the links are my email is in the description below as well. So, all right, so we're getting close to an hour, guys. I think we're starting to run out of pros and cons.
Kevin, do you remember the story in Australia a couple years ago where there was a hostage situation, and then the Uber surge, like people are like just fleeing the area, and Uber app thought it was like, oh, there's a lot of demand here, and they increased surge. Like they've been doing that.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good question. Would surge go away if Prop 22 failed?
Yeah, it's true. How would they handle
that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I see that could be a con.
Yeah.
Like surge went away because Prop 22.
Well, let me is to send that to the room is like, people, would you drive if you had choice? Would you drive for occasion? Most of the time, you're making next to nothing, and then occasionally you're making good money with surge, or would you drive for just higher rates across the board?
This isn't going into the pro or con. We're just kind of curious what people think.
Yeah.
And driver Steve is driving Lux and Lux Black. So
nice. 2016 Lexus ES 300 hybrid. Nice.
And it's a $350 a month car loan, $250 for rideshare insurance, full coverage. That still doesn't factor in gas and wear and tear on the car, which are the true hidden expenses. But yeah, right there, a quarter of it is already being taken away. So once you throw in the gas and the mile and the maintenance, I wonder.
Yep.
This is why it's actually, in all fairness, really hard to figure out where you stand with rideshare.
Yeah.
Because these are the costs that even people who've done it for a long time, don't really think about. Even the Uber tubers who made a couple thousand a week, they almost never shared their expenses, and they never shared how much gas they bought.
True.
Or how many oil changes they had to get, or things like that. That was just always something that just isn't talked about.
Yeah.
I was getting oil changes every couple months at the very least, and I was doing it part-time. So
no, I've gone through sets of brakes, tires. I mean, San Francisco is one of the worst on all those hills.
I went through 4 pairs of tires for the few years that I was doing rideshare.
Yeah.
So that's obviously replacing your tires way more than you usually do. So
it's kind of like a like I was I've used this example. We're kind of like a battered housewife. We're in an abusive relationship, but we have somebody that basically treats us like crap and beats us up and will someday possibly kill us. And where people say why don't you just leave? And it's like, oh, but no, they're going to change. They're going to stop drinking. Things are going to be better because they used to be when we were first got together. It's like, no, it's like everything's kind of looking towards they're going to continue to we're in this kind of it's an addiction, people. It really.
and I'm making that a major con. If Prop 22 passes, Uber and Lyft will not change.
Yeah.
So
Michael DeLong in the house.
Yeah. So Michael, welcome. Now he has a question. You really think you're going to make the same if Prop 22 passes? And the answer is probably, because most people, they actually make less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might even make a little bit more in some cases, because here's the thing. When you see people start saying how much money they make, I'm sorry, Steve, I'm just going to use your example, and I don't know your hours, but I'm throwing it out there, $5,200 a month. Were any of those overtime hours where you worked more than 8 hours in a day? Because if you're an employee, you get paid time and a half and double if you go beyond even more hours. So you could actually be making more money. But then when you start factoring in the independent status and you're driving overtime hours, you're actually losing more money because you're not getting that time and a half. So yeah, I think you would make the same. You'd be making peanuts. Now he says you're going to lose half your mileage reimbursement, and they will still have the ability to lower rates whenever. Well, that's another thing that I wonder, because if Uber and Lyft have to make you employees, they might have to start providing the vehicles.
That would be interesting.
That would be.
I wonder if they're going to go.
That would be very interesting, actually. So yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other question. If you're employees, do they still let you use your own car, or do they now have to provide you with the vehicle?
There's an industry that's already kind of a good example, a test page of what it's going to be like. It's the taxi industry, and I think you have to take a page out of that book.
And actually, rideshare really resembles the taxi industry when they first started. There was no medallion system, there was no regulation. There was just a bunch of people, independent contractors, and constantly lowering the prices to stay competitive, which at that point, taxi companies would make a lot of money, but the drivers themselves wouldn't be making much at all. And so Driver Steve says, I work about 45 a week on both platforms at the same time. So yeah, in that sense, then you are losing some money on 5 hours. You're especially losing money on 5 hours a week, because if you're an employee, you'd be getting paid time and a half or double time. Yeah. So, by the way, I do agree with Steve, though, by the way, that this is why regulation is a good thing. I think it's actually a little frustrating about this Prop 22 thing and this AB5 is that there were laws on the books already that basically Uber and Lyft could have been told no.
Yeah.
And they just didn't enforce them. And that's what modern politics does. They want to put their name on something. They want to look like the good guy so that they can be reelected, and they pass a superficial bill that creates more problems than it solves. And really, they could solve the problems if they just enforce what was currently on the books. So that's something that I don't like.
Yeah. No, they've been trying to like own this. They're a spoiled child. Who these companies are. When they don't get their way, it's like they'll throw money at the problem and pay off the rate. It's like business license in San Francisco, 2016. San Francisco started cracking down on it, and in San Jose Airport, and it's like Uber's response was a year later. They had what do you know? Coincidence? Senate Bill 182 overturns city from like requiring a business license. And it's like
So we're gonna wrap this up because we've been going for an hour, and we haven't added a whole lot to the list in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So now we get to actually count them out. So how many pros are there?
Yeah.
The pros are, if of Prop 22 passing, will provide financial relief and taxes. Independent status means flexible hours.
Yeah.
It protects independent status choice perception. I'm still going to stick with that. It's a perception that you're an independent contractor. I actually should be making these ICs, not IDs. But I don't know why I was doing that.
Yeah.
But, hey, that's saves rideshare and jobs it provides. Benefits can be accrued. Lets 80% of drivers resume driving part-time, and 20% of drivers accrue benefits in that situation. Cover AI stays in business because part-time drivers still need insurance. Yep. Green hubs might start to come back, which also might add to more jobs. Uber will operate everywhere. What the heck? We're gonna make that like a big one, because that's a huge convenience to have. Yeah. It's good for gig companies. It's good for stockholders. Uber and Lyft won't be shut down. Ride Pass sticks around, and you can drive for multiple platforms. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That is 15 pros with 4 big pros.
Yeah.
So that's 15 pros, 4 big pros.
Yeah.
Now then, the cons of Prop 22 passing. We have come to the conclusion, our own personal opinion, of course.
Yeah.
The title summary sounds negative, which was kind of a joke, but it's true. Prop 22's title of exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers, initiative statute. That doesn't sound very positive. So Uber doesn't have to pay benefits.
Yeah.
Now, they have indicated that they will, but under Prop 22, if it passes, there's actually no guarantee that you will get them anyway. So they don't have to. And the benefits might not even be very good. In fact, we'll do that. Might not be very good benefits.
I mean, they were forced to when they said like, oh, hey, good news, you're all getting insurance after that 2013 wrongful death.
Right.
It was like, oh, by the way, we're going to shop for the cheapest James River insurance company.
Right.
Of course, they're going to go to the cheapest one because they don't want to. It's not their responsibility. It's just a PR stunt. So when they say like, oh yeah, you're going to get benefits if you remain this, and like they're going to give us the cheapest bottom of the
right
legal profit.
Exactly. Now another con, not really an independent contractor at the end of the day, because at that point you would be an employee.
Yeah.
Continued no criminal liability from Uber. If Prop 22 passes, Uber is still shielded from criminal liability. They do settle with certain cases. They technically don't have to. Uber Eats will continue to screw small businesses as well as Grubhub and DoorDash. Uber continues to screw the passengers. Uber continues to screw the drivers. Big major con, gig companies wrote this bill, which means they're basically self-policing themselves, and we've all seen what that looks like. It's a conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Benefits can be lost if minimum hours are not met. And if passed, 80% of part-time drivers will lose the job. And if passed, and if fails, 20% of drivers will miss out on higher pay and benefits. So, that one probably should not be on this list, because that's probably better for the next week's list.
Yeah. So
we'll take that one off. But we will replace that with Uber and Lyft will not change. If this passes, this gives Uber and Lyft the freedom to not do anything new.
Yeah.
Uber will avoid being held responsible for accidents, attacks, child death, and sexual assaults.
Or if somebody gets infected with this virus, I mean, like during a ride, like that would be on company time, and they would be somewhat liable for. They would be liable for that.
All right, I'll add that. You can be deactivated without due process if Prop 22 passes.
Yeah.
The multiplier goes away. The upfront address will go away. Upfront pricing, where people get screwed, sticks around. Uber will be drowning in lawsuits if Prop 22 passes. And probably the biggest one, mileage deductions will go away.
Yeah.
So of these, we have 19 cons. Undo that. And there's 4 major cons. So actually they tie in that regard. So from our personal little discussing of these things, we have deduced that there are 15 pros to Prop 22 passing, and there are 19 cons to Prop 22 not passing, or there are 19 cons to Prop 22 passing. And in both things, there are 4 major ones, weighted ones, I should say. So I'm going to say this. If there's one thing that that you should take away from this, is that Prop 22 is not a 100% an evil thing. There are a lot of good things that can come from it passing.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of cons to it passing, though, as well.
Yeah.
Now then, as stated at the beginning of this episode, this is not the only show we're going to be doing on this. We've done this for more than an hour, so I think it's a good time to start wrapping it up. But next Sunday at around the same time, 4 o'clock, we will be doing the pros and cons of Prop 22 failing. And there will be some crossover, but that will also bring up some new dilemmas.
I'm going to need to get really drunk for that. Just warn you.
Please don't.
Oh man, Prop 22, you did it to me again.
Now here's an ending comment that I really agree with Steve on.
Yeah.
The drivers should have come together and put together this Prop 22. It would have looked way different.
100%.
And of course it would have, because drivers know what they want.
1,000%. They should have consulted the driver, saying, "Hey, what do you want?" No, this was all them, and it's like it's completely in-house. They treat us like children. It's like they own us.
In fact, we're going to let's go back to this for just a brief second. Just a brief second. We're going to go to the way bottom. We are going to make this big, and this is going to be the big con on both of the lists. drivers were not consulted on the writing of Prop 22. And just a spoiler alert for everyone, next week, this same con will be here, except it will say they were not consulted on AB5 either.
Yes, yeah.
Like in both these cases, drivers who are at the heart of all of this were not consulted as part of the process. And that's not good.
Remember?
That is not good.
Remember that time you and me were like in Sacramento? What was it, last summer? Like they did that paid work protest.
Yep. Went with the Rideshare Professor and Dave, and
that was awesome. That was a cool day. Yeah,
that was a very fun day. And it was, but yeah, that was very interesting. Now George says, under no circumstances will I be an Uber employee, and you know that's fair. If Prop 22 doesn't pass, I guess you have the right to leave. He says that Prop 22 is a lesser evil. Well, we might have a discussion about that at the end of next week, whether or not Prop 22 is the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Dustin says, so what do you think, Kevin? Yes or no with Prop 22? I'm still leaning towards no on Prop 22.
Yeah.
Only because, and again, this might be a childish reason. If Uber really wants it to pass, I am suspicious of it. Mm-hmm. But I might change my mind on next week's episode because this was very, very illuminating. Like,
yeah.
What do you think? Like, did you ever think about it in this way, Tark Roadrun?
Yeah, it's, this, to quote the great Dustin is driving, you got to have a backup plan. And there are no guarantees on this stuff. And from my experience doing this more than like 90% of the drivers out there since December 2014 that are still on, like, there is no future to this. I'm sorry, people. This is not going to be a retirement plan for you. We're going to drive that. We're going to fight tooth and nail to get any kind of recognition or compensation. And then when the technology is ready, which I believe that it is, whether you believe it's up to you. It's like they're going to replace us as soon as they can with the self-driving version of us. So.
Well, I think that technology is a little bit more out there than you do.
But
really, the question was like, let's put it this way.
It's something.
Were you prepared for there to be this many pros?
I didn't think it was going to be that much. Yeah.
How many pros did you think we were realistically going to be?
Oh, the 30-cent, like the adjustment for like, oh, here's some maintenance fee or something like that.
I thought we'd maybe come up with 5 pros.
Yeah.
Like that we tripled that easily.
Yeah. No.
So what were you thinking? How many pros were you personally?
Yeah. The big one was, like, oh, they're going to kick in like it's like they are the like, okay. They'll say like, they can with 22. And my understanding of this, like they'll say like, oh, we're going to give you 30 cents per mile maintenance fee to cover your cars. That nothing stops them from reducing the rates in your city by 30% or 30 cents a mile or something like that. So it's like, because to cover these required fees with Prop 22, they're going to give with one hand and take with the other. Always.
Oh, geez, you're right. Okay. Sorry, folks. One more, and then I promise you we will stop.
If Uber wants it, drivers beware. Absolutely doesn't.
Yeah. Yep. So
backup plans, people. Back up to the backup. And have a dash.
Stop Uber from lowering rates. Obviously, that's obviously that's a major one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, okay, now we have 20 cons with 5 big ones. There you go. I completely forgot about that. Although I will say, even with that, I was honestly expecting there be more cons on the list.
Yeah.
Pro. So, this was fascinating. I am very much looking forward to what we come up with when we talk about the pros and cons of Prop 22 failing.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, thank you for spending your time. If you have more thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Come back next week. Bring your friends. This was a fun discussion. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Dark Road Run, for joining me. I'm looking forward to this happening next week. And as always, flame responsibly. And remember, we've got merch now.
Yep.
We've got merch.
Get rich or drive trying. That's
exactly. Get rich or die trying.
Drive trying.
And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.